Hi, I'm JD Mon, and today we're exploring what happens when creativity leads strategy instead of following it, and why that shift separates winners from the forgotten. This session was recorded live at the Big Dipper Innovation Summit, created by JMI, where leaders in business, culture, and technology come together to explore the ideas and industries shaping what's next. This is the art of innovation, from creative disruption to brand relevance. Dr. Brian Brown, Dean of VCU School of Business, guides this conversation with creative leaders who are redefining impact. Kristen Cavallo, Executive Director of the Branch Museum of Design, now leads Virginia's only design museum following a decorated career in the ad industry. Chris Mumford, CMO at CoStar Group, who's leading marketing for a multi-billion-dollar real estate platform. Rita McClenny, President and CEO of Virginia Tourism Corporation, who's repositioning an entire state through storytelling. And Ron Carey, founder and CEO of Tilt Creative and Production, who's built campaigns that move culture and commerce. What you'll hear now is how the most relevant brands put creativity first, not last.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Dr. Brian Brown, and I'm thrilled to be on stage with this esteemed panel. I'm going to first introduce myself and then ask our guests to also introduce themselves, and then we'll have a few questions, and we'll open up the floor so you all can ask some questions. So again, my name is Dr. Brian Brown. At 9:59 a.m. this morning, I was the interim dean at the VCU School of Business, but at 10 o'clock, I was announced to be the dean of the School of Business. So I'm thrilled to be here. And again, we have, I've been with VCU for about 14 years and as a professor in marketing and brand management. And in my previous life, I was a brand manager at Coca-Cola and did some other brand-related and marketing things. And so, as you know, this is a panel where we're talking to thought leaders here who are at the forefront of design, commerce, and culture. And we're going to be discussing what it takes to keep our brands relevant. The dynamics of the marketplace are changing so quickly. This is going to be an incredible panel as we talk about what can we do to stay relevant in this rapidly evolving creative landscape. So I'm going to start by and ask Kristen Cavallo to introduce herself, and we'll go down the line, and then we'll start with some questions.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm the new executive director of the new Branch Museum of Design. I've been at this for about 4 months. I had taken 9 months of retirement, which was absolutely amazing, with no plans to go back to work. So this was a little bit out of left field. Before that, I was the CEO of the Martin Agency, as well as another group of ad agencies called Mullen-Lowe Group, which was a global consortium of 57 ad agencies around the globe. And I've actually worked with everybody on this panel, with the exception of Ron, because we didn't overlap at the same time, but Chris and I worked together for a number of years, and Rita was a client. So for us, this is going to be a fun one.
Hi, Rita McClenny. I just want to say you guys look so chilled and relaxed.
I know.
So Rita McClenny, CEO of Virginia Tourism, and we market Virginia's for lovers around the globe. So I look forward to engaging with you all and really getting to know all the stories of my co-panelists here better. So thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris Mumford, local Richmonder, currently CMO of CoStar Group's marketplaces. That's homes.com, apartments.com, and LoopNet. We're the ones building that huge building down the street that is almost done. We'll be moving in the first quarter of next year. Amazing place. As Kristen said, I spent 25 years almost at the Martin Agency, and we spent 6 great years building that company together, and it was great. Really excited to be here. I hope we have some decent insights to give you. Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, I'm Ron Carey, who's founder and CEO for Tilt. Tilt's a creative studio based here in Richmond. It's wonderful. I see a lot of great faces out there that I know, so I'm glad to see you here today. fully integrated company. We do work with a number of interesting companies all over the world. Started much of my career in the consumer packaged goods business with Mars Candy, and then had the good fortune of working with Mumford. As Kristen said, we didn't get a chance to work together, and have known Rita a long time and Brian a long time. So this will be fun.
All right. Let's get started. So, before I go any further, I want to thank Ken Johnson and JMI for this opportunity. The art of innovation, for creative disruption to brand relevance is this, but the bigger idea behind the Big Dipper Summit is to bring these great thinkers and designers and cultural leaders together. And this is a great opportunity for all of us. So thanks again, Ken. But speaking of culture, I'm going to ask the first question of Kristen. I found it fascinating that Kristen had this long-time career at Martin, took a pause, and is now leading a design museum, the Branch Museum. And that was just such a curious and interesting transition. I'd like to ask you the following question. So considering your career transition to the Branch Museum, how do you define creativity now? And how has your definition of creativity evolved in your work today?
I think my definition of creativity probably hasn't changed very much. I think it's about shifting someone's perspective, usually broadening it. The benefit that I experienced in advertising is that I found it in general to be a very hopeful industry. We were never given a brief or asked to tank a brand or to lessen its value or to make it less relevant. It was always the opposite. It was to expand its reach, to find new audiences, to command a price premium, to make people see it in a new or enhanced, better light. I think the difference between what I did then and what I'm doing now is that the definition of how that shows up in the world is different. So before I was more limited in the tools that I got to play with. It was TV, print, digital, and even then the toolbox was broadening. But now it's still, what is the story I want to tell? But it can be anything. We've got an exhibit coming up on motorcycle design. We've got an exhibit coming up on interiors where the curator started with Herbert's photography and music and started by doing a lot of musicians' homes. Alicia Keys, Swiss Beats, Dochi's most recent studio. And she starts her process by building a playlist. And you agree to the vibe and the energy before she picks out your paint colors and your sofa. And so she's going to be taking us through her whole process, which I think is awesome for a maker community like Richmond, because everyone has imposter syndrome at some point. I've managed a lot of creative companies, and even the best people in their industry sometimes get this feeling of, am I good enough? And so when you only look at the finished work of someone, it can kind of underscore that nervousness. But if you go through somebody's process, you might see another way of getting around an impasse. So, and then next year we might do something on the evolution of outdoor gear, because they just found Sandy Irvine on Mount Everest, and you get to see the boots that he wore, and we can talk about, how that was way back when to kind of the types of clothing that North Face or Arc'teryx or Patagonia would put on you now. So my palette to play with has just gotten bigger, but I think the hopefulness and the desire to shift perspectives is still the same.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen. So my next question, how many of y'all are from Virginia? All right, most of you. And whether you're from Virginia or not, you are familiar with the Virginia is for Lovers slogan. Rita, I'm thinking about Richmond, I'm thinking about the Commonwealth of Virginia. What signals tell you when a brand needs reinvention? I'm thinking about the brand, Virginia is for Lovers. I'm even thinking about the brand of Richmond. But what signals tell you that a brand needs reinvention versus refinement?
We look at responsiveness and what is literally the reaction to what our message is, how it resonates. And people change. The vibration of the universe changes. And we see through culture and everything in our midst, whether it's education, architecture, how we live our lives, art, water. I mean, just everything in the world influences how we want to meet an audience. And responding to that in a way that is inviting and engaging and inspiring is what we seek. However, from the Virginia Tourism point of view, which is the agency that manages and promotes the Virginia's for Lovers slogan, the brand, if you will, we have to have an obligation to fulfill. Is this bringing more visitors? Are we growing the industry? It's a $33 billion industry in the Commonwealth of Virginia, what visitors spend on an annual basis. It generates about $3 billion in state and local taxes. So we do have that. But also, what does it mean for our citizens? Is our work resonating with pride, with wanting to go out and experience the abundance with your family? Not everyone, we define a traveler, a visitor, as someone traveling 50 miles and spending the night. But obviously we want that on steroids, right? We want long vacations and we want people experiencing a lot of things. So all of these are integrated and a thread that we have to take in consideration when we look at not just for the citizens, not just for the visitor, but something that has some longevity as well. We have a modest budget, so as Kristen knows. How do you do a lot with a little, but also have it have longevity and impactfulness, and that you're able to grow it and to extend it and to approach it from all angles of different channels and, again, meet people where they are. I hope that was an answer to the question.
Yeah.
It felt a little rambling, but
No.
but it's a lot of things.
No, it was great. And it made me wonder, how old is the Virginia's for Lovers?
56 years young. 1969.
Martin Agency.
Okay.
No, we were not there.
Yeah. We were just born that year, but,
Right.
but
I was barely born.
That's funny.
We are the longest standing state slogan in the country.
But a credit to you for taking what was clearly a great idea then
and not screwing it up
and not
and
yeah.
throwing it away.
and not throwing it away, which is what most do.
But it's,
Yeah.
and it's so cool because the topic is relevant, keeping a brand and a slogan and a campaign relevant
Yeah.
in this era for more than a quarter or a couple quarters
Right.
Yeah.
is hard enough. And then to do it for 56 years is amazing.
And then live with love, because if you look at so many messages, right? Love shows up everywhere. It shows up in our daily lives. Hopefully it shows up for everyone every single day in what you feel and how you approach your life and doing the things that you love with the people that you love. I mean, at the end of the day, even if it's a business meeting, right? You're spending your precious time and your mind and your body and you're entering you guys here. We're like, we have to have a connection for you to want to be in this room to listen to us and for us to come on behalf of Ken. Like, love is at the intersection of so many things. So we're fortunate to have a brand that has love in it. And we live that through the
Hopefulness, love, we are.
Oh my God, what am I going to come up with?
Don't bring this down, Chris.
Yeah.
So, Chris, I'm thinking about, and notice the diverse industries that are represented here, right? Museums, and tourism, right? A Commonwealth, and now we're moving on to Chris, who's at CoStar Real Estate. But just think about how real estate and the marketing of real estate has evolved over the years. So again, with playing on the theme of relevance. But so, Chris, I'm thinking about your career transition. You said 25 years at Martin. Now you're at CoStar. How do you ensure that creativity remains central as organizations grow, and you all are growing rapidly? How do you ensure that creativity remains central as organizations grow or mature?
Well, after being in the creative industry for 25 years, I sort of only know one way. And I've been inserted into what is essentially a data and technology company. At its core, CoStar is reinventing and digitizing the world of real estate through data and through technology. So it's an amazing technology company. And as you guys know, technology is moving so fast. And a lot of people have asked me, how do you go from the world of advertising and then step into this world where technology is rapidly changing marketing? And I've likened it to the way I felt like in fourth grade. Do you remember in fourth grade when you were sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for recess, and then everybody would sprint outside, and I would sprint outside to this like sparse swing set, and my friends would follow, and we'd all jump on this swing set that had like a slide and a few swings, and it was sort of lame, but then we'd start playing, and I was Batman and you'd be Robin, and then next thing you know, we turned that little swing set into like Disney World, and we stayed in our world and played and came up with amazing ideas and used our imagination and and created this amazing event for ourselves for 45 minutes. And then we would unfortunately have to go back inside. For me, imagine the next day I'm that kid and I run outside to my swing set, and we do it every day. And then over to the left is this massive new toy, like a different kind of swing set. And then over to the right, the next day is a completely different one. We don't even know how to use it. We don't even know what it's capable of. We don't know how to connect with it. And as kids, when you're at the height of your imagination, you can make a few choices. You can stick with what you know, keep making those amazing games on that swing set and turning that swing set into this amazing place. You can not go to that swing set anymore and move over here to where this amazing new playground technology exists, and you can spend time with it and learn it and give up on the other one. Or I think you can find a way to bring them together. And for me, in the world of technology and the way technology is changing, that's where creativity lives, is in your imagination for how to connect new technology to great ideas. Because what made the swing set so amazing? It was the stories that we created on them. Every single day, a different story, a different adventure. And without that story, it's just a lame swing set sitting in the middle of the playground. And without the humans, the kids on it, turning it into that, then it's just a piece of metal. And all the new technology that's around us now that we're trying to turn and use to enhance the stories that we tell, that's where creativity lives for me now. I still do all the same things. I use that swing set like crazy. I'm very comfortable in that swing set. But I have learned to incorporate all the new ideas and technology into the stories that I'm telling. And that's the way I've done it.
I love it.
Well said.
Love that. And by the way, we're more than 20 minutes in and no one has said AI yet, which is a new...
Well, one of those playground games is AI.
Got close. You got close.
But I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm going to continue with that theme. I'm going to ask Ron to take that theme a little bit further, because to your point, Chris, with these technology influencing so much of creativity and affecting the way perhaps people think and maybe taking emotion out of things and storytelling out of things. We're going to build on this. So Ron, in an AI-enhanced world, how do creatives retain control over voice and vision and imagination and originality, as Chris pointed to? And what do they need to do to inject emotion and storytelling into themes again?
Yeah, I'm gonna build a little bit on what Chris was talking about, and I think the question fits perfectly with a conversation that I was having yesterday with our chief content officer. The technology is just a tool, right? I think the point that Chris was making around being a storyteller and remaining curious, at its essence, we really haven't evolved a whole lot as human beings over a long period of time. I don't care where you go back to, whether you're drawing a hieroglyphic in a cave someplace, whether you're in Egypt and you're building the pyramids. There was something that we envisioned inside of our heads. I think that when we're not careful, the tool then becomes a barrier. It becomes competition to us, and we don't view it as a tool. Chris had the swing set. He had other devices and things that showed up on the playground. I would encourage everyone in the room, whether you're a creator, a writer, an art director, whatever it may be, a photographer, there's so many things, but a musician. The fact is, at the end of the day, think of AI as a tool. That's it. Large language database, lots of stuff gets stored there. The real question becomes, how do you bring this to life? And this is part of the conversation I was having with our chief content officer, because I have a saying, which is, break big rocks, don't break little rocks, right? So how do you go and focus on the bigger things that you can impact and continue to leverage your creativity around? But don't let the little things continue to clog up the system and have people going, oh, well, that's going to take my job away. What it's going to do is enhance the job. It's another device for how you tell the story. And so, quite frankly, when we think about our creatives exercising and accessing some of these tools, the notion is, what's the story that you're still going to bring to life? Don't get caught up in terms of whether it might be that you're going to go back and do an old school illustration or something. It might be that you're going to go pick up a camera. It might be that you're going to pick up your phone and configure something and tell the story. It might be X, right? You fill in the blank. But the real point of it is, think of the technology as a way of telling a better story. And how can it expedite the process? What I love about it is it allows us to bring things to life for a client much faster than what we would have done previously, versus having to go pick up a camera. As much as I would love to use our studio, we don't have to use it, right? That at some point I need you to creatively make that decision of, do you go pick up the camera and go to a location and shoot something? Or do you pick up this wonderful new tool and tell a better story that maybe Chris or someone else says, you know what, I really do want to buy that. And what's the budget around it? And we move on from there. So continue to go back to the basics of thinking about it more as a tool than anything else.
That's a great point. So with technology and AI being a tool, and also throughout the questions so far, we've sort of referred to creatives. A couple of you were actual creatives. I want to think about creativity being a function of a creative community, as opposed to just an ad agency creative. Particularly because we're in this audience, right, which is it's a room full of creatives. Richmond is known, I'm sure Rita, Kristen will agree, all the others, that this is a creative community. So with that, what role does the community, it could be broader than Richmond, but what role does the Richmond creative community play, or what role can the Richmond creative community play in shaping broader cultural narratives and storytelling? And I'll ask Kristen that, but maybe if others want to piggyback on that, that'll be fine too.
Go to the Branch Museum.
So what's that? Yeah, right.
Monument Avenue.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Richmond is so rich in this area. I don't know if you know, but we have like the #1 public art school in the country, #1 for sculpture, number 3 or 4 for printmaking, number 4 for graphic design. Like, we really punch above our weight. The Martin Agency has been, in the last 5 years, the #1 agency in America multiple times. The Brand Center is the #1 school for advertising in the country. So, I mean, we're not like shoddy in this space at all. There are 14 tattoo parlors for every 1 resident in Richmond. We're number 3 in the world for street art. Like, I don't know if you know how creative this community is. From a per capita basis, it's off the charts. But it's interesting because many of you might be sitting there thinking, I already know that. And yet it doesn't sometimes spill out to the rest of the world. I found myself as a recruiter at Martin, even if as a recruiter of potential clients, having to sometimes explain why a great place like Martin can be in Richmond, why someone would want to move from a San Francisco or Chicago or an LA to Richmond. So actually, my ambition for the museum is not to be the best design museum in Richmond or even the best design museum in Virginia. We are, by the way, the only design museum in Virginia, so we've won that by default. I want to be the most talked about design museum in the country, because the most talked about brands increase their competitive set by 2.5 times. If I can make the world aware or the country aware of the Branch Museum, then Richmonders will come almost by default. But I need to make the rest of everybody, and we're going to do that by being the most interesting, by being the most talked about. And that those things sometimes are in my control. They are within my control. I can pick exhibits that I think are inherently interesting. I do believe there's an ROI of being interesting. A lot of times I've been thinking recently about what is the role of a museum in creating or promoting a more informed world. A lot of times museums show things from an educational perspective. They are not political organizations. But I would tell you that a design museum in particular has a different burden or responsibility, because every choice a designer makes on a font or a material or the way something looks or the way something feels is inherently already biased. It is biased from the viewpoint of the curator, of the designer. So in general, design museums can never be neutral. So as such, our role has to be to provoke conversation, to shift your perspective, to get you thinking about something. That is both a burden and a liberation, to be quite honest. So museums are, I don't know if you know this either, I didn't, so I don't say this in a, like, you should know this, but museums are, if not the most trustworthy, in the top 2 or 3 most trustworthy institutions in the country, more so than government, more so than corporations, more so than certainly media channels, journalists, advertising. 89% of Americans trust that what a museum puts inside of there and the way it projects that topic is accurate and truthful. So in a time when I think the definition of truth is being attacked or rewritten on a daily basis, what is true? What is not true? Just because one media channel says X and another media channel says Y doesn't mean either of them are projecting truth. What role do we have in projecting what is true? And what if that, in fact, happens to be controversial? So we are in a time right now where DEI is certainly on everybody's, every business person is thinking, do I remove these words? Every educational institution is having to contemplate, do I remove these words? We are moving forth with 2 exhibits on Juneteenth. One all about reframing protest and what happened during 2020, and one talking about Black identities being fluid and not being stuck in time. The fact that the only government organization that gives grant money to institutions like ours, museums, was just doged, I don't even know if that's a verb, but it is now, frees me up, honestly, that I can't lose what I already don't have. So we're going to go forth and do that. And we hope people come and talk about what does it mean to protest? What does it mean to have, what does it mean to have an identity that transpires and changes over time? And then we'll switch and do motorcycles, and then we'll switch and do interiors. And the goal is to leave you thinking differently, broadening your aperture, having conversations, and not being numb to the world or to the role design plays in everyday life.
Coming up, how Richmond's creative ecosystem is leading with purpose and why the brands that win are built on courage, not just capital.
And so I'm going to stay with this theme of risk a little bit longer and remaining bold and their creative risks that come with that. So Rita, changing marketing and branding, of course, that there's risk involved there, but with changing campaigns and messaging and exhibits, what creative risks have paid off for Virginia tourism? Or what have you learned from different creative risks that you've taken or maybe not taken? So sort of risk and branding and so on.
I think betting on people can be a risk. However, if conversations lead to an alignment of the desired outcome and you have trust and a relationship, it's so powerful, because I think of all the tools that we have from a technology standpoint, how to create, but in the end, it's the agreement, it's the contract of human to human, that what a group is designing and putting out in the world is going to make a difference in whatever you're looking to present to the customer, to the visitor, to whomever the audience is. So really taking the risk on an idea and investing in that idea, because you have to go with something, right? You have to land on a plan. You have to land on this collaborative, integrated process that costs money, and you're putting something on the line to several customers. At Virginia Tourism, we have many customers. Consumer is the obvious one. Then we have the customer of the industry. So we are considered a destination marketing organization on the state level. There are 114 destination marketing organizations across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the multiplier effect of who we compete with around the US and the world, you get the math on that. And then the other customer is who we come under, which is the Secretary of Commerce and Trade, and ultimately, I report to the governor. So how do you satisfy an arm's length number of customers and come away with something that doesn't get watered down, it doesn't become a nothing burger, and you really want to move the needle on, again, the objective of, in our case, growing tourism, making the product exciting and inviting, and it's brilliant to have products and destinations like the Branch Museum, because that's inspirational. People will travel for that reason. And then what we do is add to the story through video, through banner ads, through engagement on social, presenting content, having people engage with us, word of mouth, film. I mean, the list goes on. So you have to take all those, what we call channels, and integrate them in a way that you're talking to multiple audience members while at the same time satisfying the customers. So the stack of risk is pretty high. And then ultimately you measure it. We have to measure it. At the end of the day, from a creative standpoint, is it working for the bottom line of growth, and what percentage of growth do we want to have? So we want to get to 100 million in spending a day in 2025 by visitors. So every day, 365 days, we want visitors coming to Virginia to spend $100 million. That's the goal.
Where are we now?
Right.
94 million.
All right.
Okay.
So we're close.
Oh, it's easy.
Piece of cake.
We can get there.
I don't want to be one of those panel moderators that don't let the audience ask questions.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions, and one of them's kind of related to this theme of risk. I think this one I might throw this one to Ron. There are a number of entrepreneurs out here. I have a question that's as follows: how can small businesses or startups, entrepreneurs, embrace this creative disruption without alienating their existing audience? Any of you can answer it, but Ron, I was thinking about you since I believe you're the only entrepreneur up here.
Yeah. I think what you've got to do is understand clearly, certainly I'll acknowledge up front. I think for anyone that's started anything, there's a tremendous amount of risk that comes with it as we talk about risk. So the first thing is I think you've got to understand what that core customer is looking for and needing, and not lose sight of that. And I'm not saying that it's easy to do, while at the same time, it's kind of like changing the tire on a car while the car is continuing to move, while at the same time developing a plan for what your new offering is going to be to a new customer that you want to onboard. I will honestly admit that you may, at some point while you're going through this process, start to realize that core customer I've got and what I've been doing for them, is that what I should continue to do for them? Or is it profitable enough for me to continue to do for them? Or is there a market trend that says, wait a minute, this has a life expectancy to it that may come to an end? So it's kind of a risk-reward analysis that you've got to continue to be doing the entire time. And I'll be the first to say it, because you're going to do this. You're going to fail at something. When you're placing those bets, it's okay for it not to work out. What I would encourage you is make the decision as quickly as possible in terms of what is it that I'm going to stop investing in? What is it that I'm going to keep doing so that you can continue to move forward? Because to not make that decision burns through precious cash. And for all of us that understand that, that's the really important thing, which is where's your operating cash so that you're not burning that through as you start to onboard a new client. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And along those, there's a similar question that an audience member, and feel free to use the QR code to post any additional questions. This one might fit nicely with Chris. Since you're in a corporate environment now, as opposed to that the advertising agency space, sometimes it can be difficult to have an entrepreneurial spirit in a corporate environment. Maybe you're facing a little bit of that right now. What's your practical advice on trying new things and not being afraid of failure day to day? So you've got to be an entrepreneurial, but you're in this kind of more structured environment at times. How do you manage that?
Kristen and I were just talking about this before we walked up here. You know, the idea of being an entrepreneur, I am an entrepreneur. I do feel like an entrepreneur. Every day, I'm developing thinking and ideas. And for me, creativity and ideas grow business, period, or they're not good ideas. So I was always selling those to clients when I was on the advertising side. And now I'm on the inside in a corporate environment, and I'm still selling ideas that will grow our business. And so you have to become an entrepreneur to make that idea and turn that idea into a business result. And frankly, the only game is taking risks. It's the only thing you can do. And I've had spectacular failures. And I've run into headwinds that I couldn't break through. And I've been disappointed and angry at people around me who didn't see the power of the idea I was trying to push through. And that happens every single day. So, how do you deal with taking risks? I think the question should be, how do you not take risks? And how do you develop the confidence to drive great ideas through to fruition, to success? And that's what entrepreneurs do. So I think all marketers and all creative people are entrepreneurial in that way. And it's sort of what gets me out of bed.
I love that notion of you're taking a risk by not taking a risk.
Right.
I mean, so there's not really an option. It's just how do you manage it? So this is a question that any of you, and maybe each of you, can take a shot at answering. The theme of this session is from creative disruption to brand relevance. I want you to think about a brand or two that seems to represent that. You know, what are some brands out there that come to mind that maybe you model or envy a little bit, where they're taking disruptive risks creatively, but managing to stay relevant? Are there any examples that we might want to consider? Did I put you on the spot?
I mean, I'll jump in. Yeah. I mean, there are tons. Hermes, I love their social channels. I think they've actually taken their social and given it to artists, and they have a couple of iconic things like a horse and a horseshoe, and then they've let people interpret that brand through those icons, whether it be claymation or video or print or silk. Liquid Death, another brand of water that chose to use graphic design and package something in a way that made people think about water differently, but also think about sustainability. And one of the co-founders, I think, went to the brand center. So I don't know if you know that, but you should feel proud of it. I think there are brands every day. It's funny, I was looking at the words too, and I'm thinking art, innovation, creative disruption, brand relevance, but yet the one word we've all talked about is growth. That's, in a way, what all of this is in service of. None of us are doing this in service of just maintenance or decline. You're trying to grow the amount of dollars that people spend here so that Virginians have a better life. You're trying to grow your business Ron is trying to grow his output and change what he's doing. We're trying to grow people's sense of, mental wellness and visitation and foot traffic. I think all of these things are in service of change and growth, and they all require creativity and courage and innovation and art.
And that's a great point, because sometimes folks think being creative for the sake of creativity is actually moving the needle. As a business school dean and business school professor, it's about business.
Everything's about business.
We're trying to grow. Do any of you have any other example, Ron?
Yeah, it's controversial, right? And we don't know what the government's going to do about it. But I absolutely love what TikTok is. I don't know how many are TikTok fans. I'm personally a massive fan of kind of not only the creative disruption, but the platform that's been created to do brand disruption. And so, when you start talking about storytelling, as we've talked about, the fact that you've got a platform now and the level of talent and creativity and production, or as we would say, craft value that you see coming out of some of the work that individuals are making on it is amazing to me. And so that's one that stands out to me in particular.
I'm thinking about students, not just VCU students, but what advice, maybe whichever one of you, what advice do you have for students out there that are trying to be disruptive, they have a creative spirit, in this landscape. So I guess, what advice do you have for the 21-year-old pluses, the continuous learners that are out there, as it relates to creative disruption and branding?
I say never say no, and never take no for an answer. Never. Never, ever take no for an answer. Like, I get no every day. And it's something simple as scouting for a project, right? So it's a student film, it's a professional film, it's a docuseries, and we knock on someone's door. Hey, your home or your building fits the bill for this, and we're scouting for XYZ. And they say, no, thank you, go away. And then you go to the city records and see who owns it. Because inevitably, sometimes the person who answers is not the person who owns it. So then you go search the records and you find the owner. So long story short, there's always a way, like water. Be water. Find the way.
My advice is get comfortable being uncomfortable, because just you'd think after 25 years at the Martin Agency, and I saw some of the best expressions of creative ideas and advertising campaigns that have ever been done. Virginia is for Lovers is really one of them. And after all that time, not one of those ideas got through easily. The nature of a really great creative idea or really innovative thinking or disruptive thinking is that people don't get it.
Yeah, push back.
They don't get it like you get it. So don't expect that you're going to be able to sell it easily. You don't. Selling it is hard. So get comfortable and be water. Find your way around that. But it is going to hurt, and you're going to fail, and you're going to run into but that's part of it. And the best and most creative people, the reason why the Martin Agency is so great is we took care of each other going through all that pain. We backed each other up. We supported each other. So find that support system, and then just get comfortable, like being uncomfortable. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're not driving good enough ideas. So work harder.
Yeah. Oh, I think I would add to that. Keep making stuff, right? I don't care how you feel on a given day. Keep making things, and not only making them and putting them away, but making them and sharing them, because I think that's absolutely critical. And then the other piece is get really, really, really comfortable. And I think this fits with what a number of folks are saying, with listening to that inner voice inside of you, because that inner voice inside of you will tell you to do some things that others can't see. They don't understand it. But that's where the truth will come from. That's where the real voice and the vision for doing something special and unique and interesting and different, that people won't see it. But by the time they see it and realize what it is, it's too late, right? You're already off and running. So that's what I would say.
And what I don't know if it was a trick question. This was a trick question. The reason why it was a trick question is because I posed it as if we were talking to my students. But what we're hearing is actually relevant for adults, right? It's relevant for everyone in this room because, and Rita and I talked a little bit about this before, in today's marketplace, in today's world, you better be willing to change whether you're a young person or whether you're a senior. And what's so cool about this panel, because I happen to know this a little bit, is I don't know so much about Rita, but each of us have made some pretty bold career changes in the middle-ish age stage of our careers. Kristen, long-time career in Martin Agency, what a bold change to Branch Museum. Martin to CoStar. I was in corporate and now I'm professor and a dean, and I don't know Ron, decided to kind of venture out on his own. So I think these lessons, and I appreciate this, these lessons are so important. Rita, we were talking about, I know you have a prop and we have to bring, why do you have, and for the young people out here that don't know what a Gumby is.
Who knows Gumby? Raise your hand if
You could tell,
Okay.
Eddie Murphy and Gumby. But anyway, so why, and so it's kind of relevant to what we're talking about right now in terms of, right, being water and being risky. So
Gummy's a character from the 60s, and he's known for his flexibility and moving and changing, and whatever would come his way, he's probably he, she, I. What are your pronouns, Gumby? But the idea here is to just be flexible and to be open, because you can have an idea and you can be very focused and dogmatic about getting it done, but compromise and nimbleness and flexibility will get you in that water state where you can move around and make some changes to stay pretty authentic to your idea or what you're trying to build. But at the same time, there are some really funny videos. So Gumby sits right by my desk, and we chat. And just about every day, I have to invoke my nimbleness and flexibility to get something done.
Which is odd because I preach that to my students, and I think sometimes, and my kids, and sometimes I forget that theme, that principle applies to everyone. No,
Go to YouTube. Gumby.
Yeah. So I have another question from the audience, and this is going to seem like I planted it because I want free consulting service, but I promise you I didn't. But higher education is under attack. We've touched on many institutions being under attack. How can universities, VCU being a particularly creative one, how can many universities evolve their missions and innovate to remain relevant and a force for positive change? It would seem creative disruption is warranted to stay relevant, right? You got any advice for this audience member or a dean?
I think sometimes when change doesn't come as a provocation that we ourselves start, we immediately resist. And the style with which I do think your industry is being attacked does kind of promote the sense of wanting to armor up. But one of the things you and I were talking about before is that the education industry has changed more in the last year than it has in the 200 that preceded it. And that might not be the worst thing in the world. How it's changing and the impetus for it, I mean, could it be done better? Could it be different? Yes. But the idea of forward momentum and relevance is not ever really a bad thing. And I think sometimes we get comfortable with the rules in the game where we're already winning. And inevitably, revolution always comes from the sidelines. And I remember there was one time there was a panel at a hotel conference, and it's like Marriott and Hilton and Hyatt were all on the panel. And somebody in the audience asked about Airbnb. And they were like, it's great, but we got our eye on them, but we got our eye on them, but we're not nervous yet. And the next year, Airbnb was on the panel with them and had more rooms than all of the hotel brands combined. And, Uber, another great example, right? So I do think sometimes it's important to always be thinking about how you're advancing the ball down the field and never get stuck. Because I think being stuck is the fastest way to die. And you'd rather change because you're the provocateur of the change. But learning, I was going to say, the other thing I would say to people is learn how to let go of only one way of doing things. There are multiple ways to do everything, and learn how to sell. You may not feel like you're a public speaker, and that's okay. Learn how to write. But at some point, learn how to draw. You're going to have to try to convince someone to back your judgment with their money. Every one of us has had to do it. Whether you're trying to raise money, whether you're trying to fundraise, whether you're trying to convince a client, whether you're a lawyer and you're trying to get a jury to back your point of view. At some point, every one of us is trying to convince somebody to back our judgment with their money, and you cannot do that if you don't know how to put forth a case for your idea or somebody who reports to you idea. I don't make anything. I'm not a creative person. I'm a strategist, but my job was to sell the ideas of the people who work for me to the highest possible good that idea can do to the best clients and the most discerning clients in the world. And that means I got to be on my A game. I can't take an A idea and undersell it and have it not sell. And I can also, by the way, take a B idea if I'm really on my game and get it through. So learn how to sell in whatever way that comes most easily for you.
Thank you. Now, this has come up in the conversation. Rita, in particular, mentioned the various stakeholders that has to be aware of, and you mentioned I'm not a creative, so you're relying on others for creativity, presumably. So I want to think a little bit more, and maybe this is our last question related to making decisions, risky decisions, brand decisions efficiently, making change efficiently, quickly, and relying on partners for that. So what's needed from creative partners to develop ideas more efficiently? We need to lean on others to come up with ideas. We need to do it efficiently. Ron, I see you nodding.
Yeah, no, I mean, we think about it. To be brief, I think it's constantly thinking about a better way to do something. And so how do you disrupt the business model? For us, it's been, how do we put the pieces together in a different way? You don't typically have a production company and a post-production company and a creative company all integrated into one. For me, it was just kind of like there was a need. I could see what branded content was going, and it's how do you integrate these things? Because there's a level of efficiency and speed with which a brand customer wants to move with that historically, if you go to a traditional model, sometimes a traditional agency model, it's not built to do that, and it's not built to do it in the most efficient way possible. And so I think some of that is disrupting yourself and disrupting those around you before they disrupt you.
That question's related to your last question to me, because you asked, what should universities do in this moment? And the answer is always simpler than we think it is, because I think it gets really complicated. You have this incumbent system that's been, generations and generations of doing things a certain way, and it's hard sometimes to see why you're doing it in the first place. So if you can figure out why you're here, and then think differently about how to get to that place. If the goal is to educate, then why does it have to be done the way it's being done now, and not disrupt it? Like disrupt the model, disrupt the thinking, think completely differently about it, and be willing to lose a lot in the process, because you have the potential to lose money, you have the potential to lose people, to lose reputation, all of those things, which is why nobody goes there, which is why incumbents don't fix themselves when they see attackers. Universities better start doing it, or they're not going to get us. Ron's not going to allow his business to fail because he's going to disrupt it whenever he feels that it's not driving towards his mission. And I think that's It's a hard thing to do. That's why great creative people are so necessary, because they'll see it differently, and they'll break those chains.
And what's great about that answer is because it's reminding us that while the question as posed was related to higher education, that's just one context. Every entity and institution gets stuck in its ways. We all can rattle off a ton of case studies of brands from Kodak, on.
And they don't get
incumbent.
And people don't change.
Yes.
I mean, the majority of those case studies end with the incumbent losing.
Yeah,
Look at Kodak.
He disrupted. I think you're right. So my marketing mentor used to always say, just play offense, right? Just play offense.
All the time.
So I don't know. I'm up. This is red, so that's probably not good. I think what I would say is we're out of time, but this has been an amazing discussion.
And fun.
And a fun discussion too. So audience, thank you for your attention. Panelists, thank you for your insights. Ken and JMI, thank you for this opportunity. I think everyone in this room benefited a little bit from what we learned today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Here's what's really happening. In a world where everyone has access to the same technology and data, creativity is the only true competitive advantage left. These leaders showed us that brand relevance isn't just about following trends. It's about having the courage to create them. From art institutions to tourism campaigns to global marketing platforms, the pattern is clear. When you lead with imagination and back it with discipline, people don't just notice, they remember. The message for builders? Stop treating creativity as decoration. Make it your strategy. That's where differentiation lives. Be sure to check out our other episodes from Big Dipper Innovation for more insights from the leaders shaping what's next.